Welcome to those of you that are still here in town for football or being local or just out of sheer joy to finish out the conference with us. So thank you for sticking around. We're excited to have Deacon Markos Nickolas. He's a mental health counselor in private practice in Massachusetts. He's the creator of the Agape Circle, a pan-Orthodox initiative to support and spread Christ-centered fellowship for growth in faith, hope, and agape love among Orthodox Christians through small groups. Hopefully you got a chance to meet the Agape Circle. I got my little card. Hopefully you did as well. While he was a doctoral student, Deacon Markos met the eminent group psychologist Yvonne Agazarian. She was the founder of system-centered theory and practice. It's from her and her students that he learned functional subgrouping, and we're excited to hear about that from him today. Would you like me to read this excerpt from the abstract?
Please.
So in the abstract, he writes the following: diversity is inherent in every group, including the church. When there is harmony, differences contribute to an integrated whole that is greater than the sum of the parts. Alternatively, when differences are not integrated, avoidance, repression, scapegoating, or conflict is the result. This workshop will present a practical method for communication, group communication that balances diversity and unity while enabling group development and functionality. So please give your attention now to Deacon Markos to teach us about functional subgrouping and how we might implement it or elements of it in the various groups within which we participate, especially those in which we lead. Deacon Markos, it's all yours.
Thank you. Functional subgrouping is a tool or method that any group can use to facilitate communication, resolve conflicts, and make decisions. Everything I know about this topic I learned from attending the annual conference of the Systems-Centered Training and Research Institute. SCT, which stands simultaneously for Systems-Centered Theory, Therapy, and Training, was pioneered by a British woman of French and Armenian lineage named Yvonne Agazarian. Yvonne was a remarkable woman whose work in group theory and dynamics has been transformative for many people and continues to be so. There is a very interesting interview with her on YouTube called The Edge of the Unknown, which I recommend. In addition to Yvonne, I've learned from many of her students and co-workers, especially from Professors Susan Gant of Emory and Richard O'Neill of SUNY Upstate Medical. So, functional as opposed to dysfunctional subgrouping. What is a subgroup? A subgroup is a group within a group. The group, gathered here and now in this room, for example, is a subgroup of the larger group that is the conference as a whole. And OCAMPR includes 3 different disciplines: medicine, psychology, and religion, which are subgroups of the larger group. And the religion in OCAMPR originally identified the clergy. But of course we have Father Stephen Muse, who is both a psychologist and a priest, and thus belongs to 2 of the subgroups. And we have Father Vasilios Thermos, who is a priest and a psychiatrist, which may put him in all 3 subgroups, since psychiatry already encompasses both medicine and psychology. In life, we do belong to multiple overlapping groups and subgroups. When we look at life with groups and subgroups in mind, we can see them everywhere. We might even say that life is all about belonging to various nested and overlapping subgroups, with many overlaps throughout the hierarchy of groups. Now we're talking about subgrouping, a gerund, which implies an action. The action of intentionally forming subgroups is done deliberately. Why? What's the purpose of forming subgroups? We do it in order to facilitate better communication, gain more information, and focus the group's energy so that the group can better, more productively use that information and energy to serve its mission, rather than what can otherwise happen with groups, including parishes, and fail to make good use of the talents and wisdom that are in the group, or squander those precious resources in needless conflict, for example. This can also happen in larger groups such as metropolises and archdioceses, etc., which are also groups. But here we have in mind groups that gather in one space, in one room, let's say. Functional subgrouping accomplishes these positive results by identifying differences within the group, segregating large differences into at least 2 subgroups, and then exploring small differences separately within each of those subgroups. And after a period of dialogical exploration within the subgroups come back together to integrate all the new discoveries into the whole group with all the members. Often our human response to difference is to close our boundaries, shut out difference, shut it out or attack it or scapegoat it, or the people who bring the difference, in order that we can stay with what's familiar and comfortable and feels safe to us. There are losses associated with this, however, and one of them is that we don't learn and grow as much as we otherwise might. We simply maintain what we already know. In this way, groups that use functional subgrouping are able to bypass the dysfunctional group dynamic and patterns that can happen of alienating, attacking, or scapegoating differences. Rather, groups that use functional subgrouping are better able to address differences in a constructive way that enables a healthy balance between stability and creativity, order and freedom, unity and diversity. When there is too little unity and cohesion in a group, when boundaries are too loose and open and fluid, then things become chaotic and begin to fall apart. To quote the opening line of The Second Coming, that prophetic poem written in 1919 by William Butler Yeats, "Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world." For a group to be a group, there must be sufficient order and cohesion to keep it together. Just as a circle is defined by its center and by its circumference, groups are defined by their core identities, their purpose, and by their boundaries. And the same is true of subgroups. There is some sort of boundary separating one subgroup from other subgroups within the larger group that contains them. So a group needs order and cohesion and a boundary to hold it together. On the other hand, if there is too much order and uniformity, and the boundary is too rigid, and there is not enough freedom for creativity, that group, or organization, or parish, or etc., will become calcified. If a group is too closed and restrictive, it becomes suffocating and oppressive, and the life gets choked out of it and out of its members. Think of the various groups to which you belong and participate in. Growth involves change, and that means embracing difference. Differences are required for group development, quantitative development and qualitative development. Groups of living human beings are themselves living organisms. So functional subgrouping enables a healthy balance between stability and creativity, order and freedom, unity and diversity. So rather than competing and conflicting with other members of a group, groups that do functional subgrouping intentionally divide into different subgroups to explore sequentially their similarities with fellow members in their subgroup. And they discover small digestible differences among them within the subgroup. And then all the subgroups, they share the common goal of discovering, exploring, and then integrating those differences that they have uncovered into the larger group for the benefit of the group as a whole, bringing with them more information and energy to the whole group to use in pursuit of whatever that group's mission is or purpose is. According to SCT, groups have a developmental life course, although not all groups make it all the way through. Remember, a group can be as small as 2 people. So every couple or friendship is a group, loosely speaking. So the phases of group development, according to SCT, are these. There are 3 main ones. We'll divide them into 3 large groupings, and then each of those has elements within it that I'll go ahead and mention. The first phase is the authority phase. And then, over time, the group evolves into the phase of intimacy. And if it completes its tasks and challenges in that phase, it moves into the phase of work, the work phase. So let me just give you a little more detail about each of the phases. And remember, according to this theory, every group, every couple, every parish, every organization that is sustained long enough and developing, not calcified and frozen and ossified, but developing and growing, will go through these three phases. So the authority phase has the subphases of flight, then a transition into fight, thinking of the sympathetic fight-flight nervous system, starting with flight. That would be avoiding conflict, avoiding challenge. So the first phase is, subphase is flight, transitioning then into fight, and then roles and role locks. This is where there's a vying for dominance, perhaps, an up, one down type of thing, and people can get into what they call role locks, where they're lock horns with each other, so to speak, and power struggles, you might say. And then the crisis of hatred, where they hate other members of their group. So that is all in the authority phase. And the fight phase, let me just say again, the fight phase of the group unfolds as differences become more apparent and people become more comfortable to voice their differences and their differing opinions and perspectives and experiences. Because at the beginning, they're very polite and they, agree. They're very agreeable with each other. It's the honeymoon phase, you might say. But then they feel safe and comfortable enough to disagree more. And then that's where the conflict comes up. And then they have to work through that fight phase of having these differences. And if they survive those challenges, the group can develop into the second phase, which is called the intimacy phase. So if a group stays in flight, it might feel very polite and cordial and pleasant and comfortable, but it will kind of die a death of, passivity or something.
Lack of intimacy.
Yeah, lack of intimacy and a lack of energy. And people will be avoiding sharing parts of themselves with each other, for example, or, experiences. So they'll repress their differences instead of bring them into the relationship with each other. So, but bringing those differences forward is challenging and can be scary for some people, or for other people, they might, more disagreeable types might enjoy that phase, that subphase, and that's where we can get into the power struggles. But if they stay there, and that's where, let's say, a lot of marriages, I know, Doctor, you were speaking about marriage counseling, they flounder on the rocks there of power struggle and never get to the intimacy stage. But if they can work through those, intimacy is not the end-all either. It's the middle stage, according to this theory. Intimacy, the phase of intimacy, has two subphases, enchantment and disenchantment. So enchantment would be, I'm thinking of, maybe we could even call that the second honeymoon phase or something. That's where it's kind of almost like you're in your own little bubble, and it's you and me against the world, and isn't it wonderful that we found each other, or that we're here in this group. It can become cultic, let's say, very ingrown, and we don't need to engage with others. It almost reminds me of Peter, James, and John, the apostles on Mount Tabor with our Lord in the Transfiguration, who were in such a state of bliss when he revealed his divine glory that they didn't want to leave. And they said, and then of course the prophet Elijah and Moses came, and they were all there together in a little small group. And they said, "Oh, it's so good here. Can we just stay? It's so good to be together here in your, basking in your glory. Can we just stay?" Forgetting that there is a whole world that needed their Lord to come and do his mission. And he reminded them of that. So then we move into the third phase. After enchantment, before we get to the third phase, we have to work through the sub-phase of disenchantment. And that's where, okay, I guess we're not in Kansas, that expression, okay, I do love you and I think you're wonderful, but I realize that you are not, God, let's say, and neither am I. We are sinners, in transformation on the road of repentance. So that's disenchantment. And then having grown through those sub-phases, we enter into the third phase called the work phase, in which members take up productive group roles as they collaboratively pursue goals that fit the context and mission of the group. This final phase is transformational for the members, the group, and the world outside the group. So, in that intimacy phase, and especially the enchantment sub-phase, and thinking back to the story of the Transfiguration, it was transformational. Well, our Lord was transfigured, but the apostles were falling on their faces in the icon, blinded by the light. But their transformation and their glorification came, afterwards in the work phase. So the work phase is transformational for the members, and it's also fruitful. It's where it's fruitful for them, but for the world outside the group. As the seeds that were planted in phase 1 and cultivated in phase 2 are brought to fruition for harvest in phase 3. So, the benefits of functional subgrouping, to list several, are that it creates a space in which all feelings and perspectives may be expressed. It lowers the risk of scapegoating and stereotyping. It creates a more secure relational context and a more functional climate for work and exploration. It makes for a more engaging group experience. It helps members develop self-confidence as they become active in creating their group experience. And when compared to groups that don't use functional subgrouping, such as groups using Robert's Rules of Order, for example, or even Q&A sessions following a presentation in which each person comes to the microphone and poses their question to the presenter, and the rest of the members of the audience are an audience, not necessarily active participants, but they're observers. Okay, groups that don't use functional subgrouping, they not to say that they don't have their time and place and purpose, but subgrouping makes for more collaboration, it allows for more engagement. And when they're focused on a task or a goal, they're more productive and creative. And when two groups are subgrouping in a group, they take turns sequentially in their dialogue. One subgroup will discuss among themselves for a while as the other subgroup listens, and then the other subgroup will discuss among themselves while the others listen. So the members of one subgroup speak only to the members of their own subgroup. But since they are in the same space, all in one circle, they witness and overhear what the other subgroup is saying. And so they begin to notice similarities across or between the two subgroups. So the boundary between the two subgroups is permeable. It says you cannot speak to anyone outside of your own subgroup for now, but you can listen. So that's the openness in the boundary. It's not we are doing breakout groups and we're going into separate rooms and we're going to talk amongst ourselves and then come back. It's no, we're in the same space. So that boundary between the two groups is permeable. And that's important. And then they begin to notice similarities between the two subgroups because they're listening and they're witnessing each other. And then they start to notice that the different subgroup is not so other and different anymore because they start to see similarities between them. Right. And then they bring those, and that they've been able to share their differences because it's easier for people to share small differences in a climate of familiarity and similarity than it is to bring a big difference to others. And it's easier for people to receive small differences than to receive dramatically big differences. So what I'd like to do now is form a circle. So if we can form these chairs into a circle in kind of close here. Thank you.
Away from the table?
No, yeah, away from the table, just in a circle facing each other. That'd be great.
Okay.
So we're going to...
You're going to be part of the group too, right?
Yes, I'm joining the group.
Great.
So sorry.
Okay.
So, okay, so let's do this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so all the ones raise your hand. Okay, and all the twos are down. Okay, so the ones are going to watch, while the twos we're going to pass the ball amongst ourselves. Yeah, let's go a little faster, make it fun. Okay. Your turn. Okay, thank you. So, the two subgroups take turns sequentially. One subgroup discusses amongst itself while the other subgroup watches and listens, and then they alternate that way. Meanwhile, they are going through certain steps in the way they they communicate. And Stephanie and I will demonstrate the first step of this communication method. So there are several steps to this, and the first step is what I call the share. A person says something, and they say it in a succinct enough way that it can be easily received. So it's not a soliloquy or long monologue, it's a short statement. Something like, and then the other person responds to that, but in a particular way. This building is really nice, and it's been great, visiting with everyone, and I really love the facility, and it's been very comfortable. But I've been sitting too long, and I'm kind of talked out, and I really feel like going outside and walking around.
Well, we can't walk right now. I don't think that's a good idea. We have too many other things to do here.
Okay. First, that was one way of responding. Second way, it's been a long day, and I've been really kind of cooped up a long time, and everyone's wonderful, and it's a great conference and facility, but I miss being outside and getting fresh air, and I got to move my body and walk around.
Oh.
That's usually my go-to.
Third option. It's been so great, these workshops and all, and I love the facility, and it's really been comfortable, but I really need to move my body and get outside and get some fresh air and be in nature more.
So you like it here. You're having a good experience inside in this beautiful facility.
Yeah.
But you also want to go outside and get some time out in the fresh air and get some exercise. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would like that too. I want to be outside too.
Oh, okay, great. So she just modeled what I'm calling, what's often referred to as reflective listening or mirroring, but I like to call it recapping. So in SCT, they call it the reflection. So she reflected me or recapped me, and I felt understood. And you notice how she confirmed with me that what she understood is what I meant to convey to her. She said, "Is that what you are saying?" And I said, "Yeah." So that was the confirmation. And then she did the next step, which is she joined me. So she didn't have to join me, but if she really feels like joining me and going outside, then I feel happy about that because now I'm not alone. And so she said she would like that too. She can resonate with that. She shares that feeling, and so she wants the same thing. And I feel now connected. I don't feel just like the only one. I'm not alone now. The steps of this communication are, in functional subgrouping, are the share and the listening. And I sometimes don't know which comes first because the listening involves listening to inside a person what they want to say. So before they even share, they listen to themselves. So there's the listening to yourself. And then there's the speaking it. So that's called crossing the boundary from within the self to outside of the self into the group. So people can hold on and stay enclosed internally and never cross that boundary from inside to outside or from intrapersonal to interpersonal communication. So we want to first cross that boundary, but first listen to what it is we actually want to put out into the group. Because not every crazy thought that runs through our head is the one we want to put out into the space of the group. So you listen to yourself, and then you share what you want to share, and then the next person decides, do I relate to what that person is saying? Can I resonate with that? Can I join that? And if so, then let me jump in and recap and then join. Now, that presumes that you can join that person. And I say that we can always join another person on some element of what they shared. It's a matter of percentage. So maybe she really wants to stay inside, but maybe there's some part of her that can join me in going outside. I can give you many examples later, but basically you see if there's someone in the group that has a high percentage of resonance and can really join, like, oh yes, I really want to go out too, then that person should really kind of speak up quickly. But if there's a big pause and nobody in the group really feels like doing it, then someone needs to go ahead and find their small percentage of them that can join and go ahead and join, because we never want to leave that one person in the group alone out on a limb by themselves and isolated. So this is a norm in this type of subgrouping, that we never leave a long pause after someone shares, but we kind of wait to see if there's someone that has a strong resonance, then they go ahead and speak up. So
Is this like proactively defending the scapegoat or something?
exactly, we are preventing scapegoating this way. Yeah, and isolation within groups can be very destructive if you join a group and feel that no one can relate to you and no one is reflecting you, and you're kind of even more alone than you were when you weren't in the group, which is the opposite of the goal of going into a group, right? So, yeah, so, okay, so I gotta, yeah, that can happen. So, the listening, the share, the recap, the join, and then the last part is the build. So after she joins me in this idea of going out for a walk, she now is going to turn away from me back into her own self and listen to what she wants to add to what I put out. So we're always adding little differences, little discoveries that come. Where are they coming from? They're not predetermined. We're not. There's no script. We're listening internally for what's coming up. We apprehend like feelings and ideas from within in the moment, spontaneously. So now she is going to listen to herself and then build on what I proposed or shared.
So if we go outside, we'll be refreshed, and when we come back, it'll make our experience all that much better.
Oh yeah, that's great. So not only will we be refreshed, but then we'll come back and we'll like it better here.
Yes,
That's
right.
awesome. I didn't even think of that. Okay, so she did a build. She joined and then built. And so that's how the group kind of explores these little differences within the similarity. Now, there may be people in this circle who don't want to go outside at all and who want to stay seated. They're tired. They don't feel like moving. The opposite of what I'm sort of sharing. And so then someone can say, now, if anyone else wants to go outside, they can go ahead and join and jump in and reflect back what she shared. So why don't you try that for an example, and you will recap back the last bit that she shared. I just did it, but you go ahead and do it.
Yeah, so Stephanie, if you're saying, you want to go outside too, but it's not just to go outside and then that's it. You want to come back and feel refreshed.
That's right.
Yeah. I kind of thought that we were going to be going outside a little bit more, since it's so scenic and picturesque here. So I'm kind of talking about it. I'd be willing to join you guys too, if that's okay.
Yeah, awesome. So you did a great recap, and now we're going to be a little subgroup here. Okay. We always want to have more than one. Well, not always necessarily. It's possible for a group just to remain one whole group the whole time. But if anyone does have a difference or feels like creating subgrouping because they like the excitement of it, then they could say, I have a difference. And then what happens is you ask the subgroup that's working, the three of us, if we're open, if we're ready for a difference to come into the group. And if we say, well, not quite yet, we want to keep talking, that's fine. That's fine, because we're still forming something here, like what we're going to do or whatever. But then when we're good, we got our plan of action or whatever, then we'll say, yeah, sure, we want to hear what they say. Don't we want to hear? Let's hear them. And now we're ready. And so then you go ahead and say something like, I really don't feel like.
Well, I hear what you're all saying.
Oh no, you don't even talk to us.
No.
You just say, are you guys ready for a difference?
Oh, are you guys ready for a difference?
Yes, we're ready. Now you say to these people who are not in our subgroup,
Yeah.
you just only look at them now, because we're not going to join you. You look at them and
Maybe you will.
no. No, we want to continue.
We don't believe in persuasion?
No, we're not interested in persuasion at this point. We're interested only in finding people who want to join you. So then you go ahead and say,
So I hear this other group saying about going outside.
perfect, yeah.
And I also want to go outside, but I feel the responsibility of finishing the session, which ends at 5. So I'm thinking maybe we wait till 5, and we go outside at 5, and then we enjoy the beautiful day that we have at 5 when the session's over.
I agree with that.
Okay, so now, that works very well, thank you. And one thing I forgot to say is after each speaker speaks, there's a formulaic expression of 2 words that we use to signify that we're done, and then opening it up. And we say anyone else, and I forgot to do that. So you would say anyone else.
Anyone else?
Okay, and so then Thomas, why don't you go ahead just for
Yeah, like
and recap him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I hear you saying, Mina, that you feel like a responsibility to stay here till 5 because this is the program, and then enjoy our time outside. I also happen to agree with that. I know we have Vespers at 5:30, but I think it's enough time to get in half an hour walk or at least some sunlight. Yeah.
Okay, so you got the recap and you felt joined. Did you feel? You did. You could feel that.
I could have maybe said, did I get that right?
You could have done that
forgot
just to
that.
confirm, and then you built.
I also nodded, so.
Yeah, you nodded, right? So that works. Nonverbal communication is good. And then you added something to it, right?
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
At 6:30, I might walk down to the pizza place. So then it's like I don't want to get too much exercise, but I feel wanting to be outside at least in the sunlight.
And then Ari, go ahead and jump in.
So what I'm hearing you both say is that,
And now, thank you. You only need to recap the last person who spoke, and only the new bit that he added. That was his build onto what.
okay, so what I'm hearing you saying in addition is that we'll stay inside because this is important for us to finish the work here, but you are in the mood to not just go out after 5 o'clock, but maybe take an extra stroll to the pizza parlor and be outside a little bit longer, and I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so now you're your own subgroup, we're our own subgroup, and we would proceed as such. Now, let me pause this demo. Thank you for all the participants. You can all go back to your seats now, everyone. Let's wait a moment for them to all make their way through the large crowd back to their seats. Okay.
The recording doesn't know that the room's packed. The whole conference is
Okay. All right, calm down, everyone. Can you hear me in the back?
Please keep it down.
Okay.
Storming.
Thank you. So let me just say that there are 3 situations or 3 different purposes for which functional subgrouping can be used that I think would be relevant to all of us here. And one is for decision making and as a conflict resolution tool. Okay. A second is for therapeutic purposes. And a third is for spiritual formation. So those are 3 different usages of functional subgrouping that I think are relevant for many of us. So let me say a few words about the decision-making purpose of this tool. And So anytime a group has differences that are hard to integrate, or it's hard for them to make a decision, and let's say there are two viable options to explore and they're undecided about which way to go, they're at a kind of fork in the road, functional subgrouping would be a very adaptive and constructive and productive and effective way to work through those differences. Now, debate is another way of doing it, and that's got its place and its purpose and can be great. But this is not debate. This is not persuasion. This is dialogue within a group of people who already agree with you. And so it works differently than a debate where we find out, who's going to persuade the other or who's going to be voted the winner of the debate. Which doesn't necessarily mean that the other side will be persuaded. It just means that they'll be defeated. So in this way, we avoid defeating anyone because defeated members of the group don't have a lot of energy for the group after that. So, should we, have a soup kitchen in our church? We really need to have it. The Lord calls us to feed the hungry, etc. So we need to have a soup kitchen, starting next week here. What are we doing? We're hypocrites if we don't do that right away. And maybe somebody else says, hold on, I've been doing soup kitchens and I know how much work it is. And I know that if we start that, we can't just stop it because the people will expect it. And then we'll be doing them a disservice if they change their whole pattern of life to come to our kitchen. And then one day we're not there for them and they'll be mad at us because we've lulled them into thinking that we're going to provide food for them every week or whatever. So we need to think this one through, go to the pizza shop first before we decide this one, No, the Lord said I was hungry and you fed me and we're not feeding anyone. I want to do it, this Sunday. So you can see, and then maybe I can politic around and get a bunch of people to agree with me and then boom, my way wins. But then what happens to the other side? There's dissension and division and conflict. And they may have lost the battle, but they may then want to undermine the other one and say, I'm not going to that church anymore. I'm withdrawing my membership or my pledges, or I'm going to, gossip about what a bad idea this is, and et cetera, et cetera. Do these things happen in our churches?
Yeah.
No.
Not in our church.
Okay. Orthodox
Never.
Wow.
See, this is human beings. This is the fallen human condition, and it's typical of groups. It happens in groups unless we do things differently. So this functional subgrouping is a way to avoid that. Start with the issue of contention, asking all those who see the issue one way to talk together and explore their view with each other, and all those who see it differently to talk together, but they're all in the same room and they're doing it alternatively, so they're hearing the other side, but they're not speaking to them. They're listening, and then they're speaking amongst themselves, and then the other side is listening to them. It's not so head-to-head combat. It's not hand-to-hand combat. You see, it's a dance, really, so it encourages people to join each other on similarities rather than to combat each other or compete with each other on differences. That way, they can explore all the different variants within their subgroup and all the different nuances. And maybe within a subgroup, maybe you could have joined our subgroup about walking, but you could have brought in your build could have been, I really want to go outside too, but I think we should wait until this session is over and then do it. And that could have been part of our subgroup as well. So,
But how does that happen if I bring that up and then, at least one of you says, no, I want to go now?
Well, you would first say, I can join you on wanting to go outside. I really want to go outside.
Yeah.
And then you would see that the last person feels joined. You would confirm that with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would say, well, my build is that while I do really want to go outside, I want to do it in 20 minutes or something like that. And anyone else, and then we could come back and go back and forth within but it's not like I want to go outside next week or tomorrow, or it's a small change, a small difference. If the difference is too large and the subgroup that you're joining feels like, wait, you just threw a curveball to
Let's
us.
go outside and start a soup kitchen.
Yeah. Then they would say, well, we don't really feel like you joined this,
Right.
and then you wouldn't come in. You would just say, okay, it's too different for us right now. Yeah. So thank you for that question. So that's one usage of functional subgrouping when you're trying to decide something and there are two conflicting points of view or something in a group. Another use, and this is the one that I've used, purpose that I've used it for a lot, is therapeutically. When we do it, and by the way, I don't, how much time do I have left?
I think it's 4
13 minutes.
Oh, okay. So therapeutically, when we do it that way, we tend to start with, so there's no issue of contention. People just come to the group and there's no agenda. Nobody knows what's going to happen. We do a centering ritual. Everyone gets kind of calm and centered. And then we make eye contact silently with other members of the group. So we just be like, everyone makes eye contact for, at least like 5 seconds with everyone else. So let's just try that for a moment. We're just nonverbal, silent eye contact with every other person in the group. And it's a way of silently greeting each other. I think we've done it, right? So we start with that. So first we do the centering, like a little quiet time, and then when we're centering, we're not making eye contact. We're just calming ourselves from transitioning to that space from wherever we drove in from or whatever, and then we go ahead and make the eye contact, and now we're kind of coming into the group non-verbally with making contact visually with each other. And then whoever was ready to begin, begins. And then he say, and usually now in therapeutic group, it's bottom up, meaning starting with the body, physical sensations. I have a real kind of achy all over my body and been sitting way too long. Anyone else?
Yeah.
So recapping?
I hear you saying that you've been sitting way too long and you have achiness all over your body. I feel the same way.
And then go ahead and give us your experience of it. Just add to it.
I feel very restless in my seat.
And then you say, anyone else?
Anyone else?
I hear you saying that you're kind of feeling restless. I don't know if I feel restless. Is that basically, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I feel restless,
Yeah.
but my shoulders feel so tight and tense.
And then you say, anyone else?
I hear you saying, Daniel, that your shoulders feel really tight and tense.
Yeah.
Maybe restless, but more like tight and some tension in your shoulders. Did I get that right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely hear where you're coming from. For me, it's like a prickly sensation, like a coldness and prickly sensation in my feet from sitting a lot. So they're tense, but it's like in a different part of my body. Anything else? Anyone else?
I heard you saying you have like a prickly, cold sensation in your feet. Is that right?
Yeah.
My feet are kind of cold. I feel like I need to move around. So, yeah, anyone else?
So I hear you're feeling your feet are kind of cold,
Uh-huh.
and you're feeling that sensation you need to move around. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Well, my back has been aching for 35 years,
Oh.
and
Sorry.
and every time I sit a long time, it just aches even more. Sorry.
And so thank you again, because that brings up an important point, is that in the therapeutic, especially in the therapeutic use of functional subgrouping, our attention is to the here and now, just like we did with all the tingly, achy stuff. The 35 years is okay to mention, but we don't want to get into the past. We want to bring it right to this moment as much as possible,
All right,
here
thank
and
you
now.
for that,
Yeah, so if you can, Ari, if you could build on that, you've had this back condition for a long time, but what's happening in this moment for you?
So right now, my back feels just a little bit numb. I just need to move around, help it loosen up.
Okay, and then you would say?
Anyone else?
And you see what would happen is we just keep going from there. Somebody would say, oh, you need to loosen it up. I need to, and then we would, these small differences. Now here we're being one subgroup, and that's totally fine in a small group like this.
Right.
But if someone really has a difference or wants to create a difference and see if anyone will join them, to, not being achy at all, feeling like completely like.
I'm great.
There's always one. Right?
for you.
And so we could do that. I mean, but do you see how even if we don't divide into subgroups, because there's really no need to if there's no real difference, in this recapping and joining on similarities and then building in incremental ways, it's like tossing the ball around, but again, one ball for the whole group. So it'd be like, there's no ones and twos. It's like whoever you want to throw it to, right? And so that is what ends up happening in the last, I'd say, third of the time that the group meets for. So like usually my groups are 90 minutes, so it'd be like, roughly, not maybe the last half an hour or so, 25 minutes or so, half an hour, because we do something else the last couple minutes. So what happens is after the group has worked in subgroups and dialogued amongst themselves that way, and then again we start to hear that, oh gosh, they want to walk in 20 minutes. We could kind of wait 20 minutes, and then we start to become ones. We get one thing going. We integrate now. We've integrated all the little things that were shared, that were discovered, into the group. And so that's in a case of like planning to go for a walk, because now we've learned from them that we should stay till the end of the workshop. I got that information because he said it. If you were in your own room and saying that, I wouldn't have benefited from hearing that information. And so this is where subgrouping allows for more information to be shared, because you didn't have to hold on and repress that information, knowing that, I'm a deacon, and you wouldn't want to disagree with a deacon in an Orthodox setting, right? So you would hold back. I know you're a doctor. I might hold back in your presence because he's a.
I'm just a troublemaker. That's
Yeah.
all I am.
Me too. That makes too. We're in the same subgroup.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yes.
I'm African.
Uh-oh, here we go.
But my point, you see that if people like in a situation where I don't want to say that because I don't want to offend the other person by disagreeing, so I don't want to be disagreeable. I'm very agreeable by nature, whatever. I'm not going to say that, and so the group loses on a very good point of information.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why it's good to subgroup and stay in the same room and listen. And work that way, and then we kind of spontaneously reintegrate, and then we end with going around and saying, okay, what's your takeaway from this experience? So this is in a therapeutic group.
Yep.
What did you learn? And everybody always learns something. Sometimes profound things, and a lot of times you think, what are we doing? Starting with aches and pains. How therapeutic is that? You'd be surprised. More often than not, we end up with deep existential realizations about life and death in 90 minutes. But there's no agenda. There's no lesson plan. The leader isn't trying to steer it in any direction. The only thing the leader does is be a stickler for the structure.
Right.
Okay, so the third type of use for this group is what I'm calling for spiritual support or development or faith development. What do I call it? Spiritual.
It's a spiritual direction, but
Not direction, but I forget the word, but yeah. So like faith for spiritual formation or faith development. Those are ways I put it. And in that case, we do start with something. We start with the scripture, and we start with just the reading from the lectionary. So if we were to do, and I'm calling these spiritual formation groups agape circle, and the purpose is to connect with one another through Christ and to connect with Christ through one another, kind of like Father Stephen talks about. And it's to basically build Christ-centered fellowship amongst us. And for the purpose of growth in faith, hope, and agape love. So I'm calling it agape circle. And so we would begin, in that case, with the scripture reading, and I just looked it up for today. It's, the epistle is 1 Corinthians 15, and it ends, just for time, I'll just say, it ends with, it has, it says, the body is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. And so it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit. So that's the epistle reading from 1 Corinthians. And so we would just start with that. And then what's coming up for you as you listen to that reading? How are you responding to that reading? What strikes you in this moment, hearing that? Now you may have read that reading 25 times and heard, a bunch of sermons about it. And so you know a lot about that. You've studied theology and you know what St. Paul really meant and what was going on with the Corinthians and all the things about the context of the original audience and all of that, and you may be a Bible scholar, but that's not what we're interested in Agape Circle. We're interested in, again, the here and now. What's getting triggered in you as you hear that? What's getting prompted, or what's bubbling up for you? How are you responding to it here and now? And it could be as simple as what's coming up for me is my brother died 1 year ago at the end of this month. And I'm just thinking of that as I hear about he says
The body's raised in incorruption.
yeah, so the body is sown in corruption. And I remember his corrupt body. He died of skin cancer. He had lesions and terrible wounds all over his back, and it's spreading. And raised in incorruption. And I'm thinking, Chris is going to be raised pure. And I can even see that. Anyone else?
I hear that you were saying that your brother died at the end of this month a year ago, and that had a big impact on you. And now you're thinking, I can almost see you again. I'm excited to see what you're going to be in incorruption. Is that, I'm hearing that right?
It is. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, what's coming up is kind of similar in the sense that a little different, but I was wondering.
Go with a similar. Don't be too different so that I can feel the resonance longer.
Yeah, my grandfather died many years ago.
I'm already feeling joined now.
Yeah, and it wasn't this month, but I think about him a lot, and I remember his smile, and I think that's going to be part of his incorruption that he's raised in.
And then you say, anyone else?
Anyone else?
And we don't want to let the pause go too long. So if anyone can jump in, they can. Otherwise, I'll jump back in, and the two of us will be our subgroup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can just be two. I mean, that's the subgroup. So you can see his smile, and I see your smile as you say that. It gives you joy. Yeah, I can really relate to that because I feel a smile inside of me as I think of my brother, and I just had a dream of him actually yesterday, and he was walking and towards me, and it does give me a lot of joy as well. And so now, do you feel like I recapped you and joined you?
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to try to build. So I'm going to pull away from you. I'm going to think to myself a minute. I'm going to say, I think that it's making me grieve less and have more energy as I recall his memory. Anyone else? And you see, so then we go wherever that goes. We start with the scripture. We're not doing a Bible study. We're using it as a springboard to connect. But it is Christ-centered because we begin with prayer, we begin with reading of scripture, and where two or three are gathered, the Holy Spirit, Christ is in our midst through the Holy Spirit. And so this is how Agape Circle works. So I just want to say a few things if I can squeeze
Yeah, I
in.
was going to say, Deacon Markos, I have some questions. I don't know if we have enough time. The red's after 5 o'clock. So
I have to go in about a minute or two. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to hear kind of.
I would say quick parting,
Okay.
like bullet points,
Okay.
and then whoever wants to stay after for questions can stay after for questions,
Okay.
and we'll
Wrap
bid
it up.
farewell.
Yeah.
Okay, well, one parting point is that
Alexander.
it's important to, so this is a structure, a formal way, but this is done informally in life all the time. If we could be more mindful in our listening, in our conversations with people to do the recap, to do the join up, find the similarity. It doesn't have to be formalized. You don't have to say anyone else. We're not going to sit in the circle, but you can take this and apply it. It generalizes out into life because life is, again, various overlapping groups that we belong to and participate in. And it's important to find a subgroup. If you have a difference that no one is relating to, you're isolated, find someone that you can share it with and connect with, who you can join on. This is very important, that as human beings need to belong to one another. And in large groups, people can feel lost and overlooked and unseen and unheard and unknown unless they can connect through a subgroup. But then the group as a whole can benefit if that subgroup remains within the larger group and doesn't kind of isolate itself out of the group. So the only thing I wanted to say was koinonia. This relates, this diversity and unity and diversity. You would think of St. Paul again to the Corinthians about, I think it's Corinthians, of the body as many members, but one Spirit, one Lord, one body, right? And Yvonne Agazarian didn't really have the concept of koinonia in mind when she was developing this, but she was told it by another group therapist named Pat Murray, who was a friend of hers, who said he was working on trying to create in group therapy. These were analytical group therapists in the UK. That he was trying to bring together this New Testament idea of koinonia. And I just want to read to you this quote from her. She said, so he wrote her a letter, and she said, and you can see this on YouTube, I think, in a video where she said, he called this communication potential by the Greek word koinonia. Pat's understanding of koinonia was a unique contribution to group analysis, and indeed to all groups in all settings. In his reply to my letter, wanting to know more about koinonia, he wrote, koinonia, communication, fellowship, intercourse, belonging to everybody because it belongs to nobody. Koinonia implies not individualism, but friendship, a form of togetherness and amity that brings a serendipity of resources, communion as it is understood in the Greek Orthodox Church. And Yvonne concludes her remarks on this by saying, I was very excited by Pat's ideas about developing koinonia. All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Really, really interesting.
Thank you.
Plan to bring some of this into my groups next week.
And you can come to Agape Circle. We're meeting on Zoom on Sunday nights, so anyone interested, please email me in.
I love what you said about the informal application of this, because at times I feel like I don't have a good way of neutralizing dissenting voices in a room. And there's only so much settling down you can do of people, of like, just let this person talk, or like, so-and-so in a powerful position said something and now nobody wants to disagree. Right? So I think, it's very easily applied where it's like, okay, hey, let's put all the ideas out on the table. Let's make a list of all the different ideas, and then we'll take turns. We'll say, I want to discuss this one, and if you don't want to discuss it, you're just going to listen to everybody else discuss it. And I only want you to discuss it if you think it's a good idea. I don't want anybody to say anything negative.
That's it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That would definitely.
That would go a long way
Would go a long
in
way.
neutralizing.
Yeah. Right.
But that's not the one that I want.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's not the one. Just okay. We're going to talk about the one you want. Just settle. Just wait.
Right.
So I'll definitely use that. Thanks.
Excellent. Good. Thank
Appreciate
you so much.
it. Thanks
Doc.
so much for doing this. Thanks so much for being the planted. I was like, geez, that.
This was great.
I also love that.